So, how loud am I? Am I too loud? No, not too loud. Good. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Bill Askin. Thank you for joining us tonight, whether here in person or online on the what is it? A Google site, Google or YouTube channel, I think it might be. But thanks for being here and joining us for the candidates forum for the upcoming election to our local municipal school board. I will be serving as a volunteer moderator for the forum tonight. I'm not sure exactly how that came about, but I'm happy to be here. And I'm honored to moderate the discussion with our candidates for the Board of Education and all of you this evening. Just real quickly, as a local Sparta resident and business owner in town, and at the prodding of my daughter, my youngest daughter, who's a senior in high school here in Sparta, I strive to promote voter education and voter rights, and I think that's why everybody is here tonight. And that's a big part of the reason that I agreed to moderate the presentation tonight. I think this is a terrific service to the voters and to the community. Just for clarification, I am an attorney, so I have a legal disclaimer I have to read, right? Just for clarification, neither I nor my law firm are an organizer, a sponsor of tonight's forum, and we have not endorsed any particular candidate or slate of candidates for the Board of Education. As most of you are aware, though, we have 17 candidates this year for 6 positions on our school board. And I understand that all the candidates were invited to be here this evening, and as you can see, many agreed. So a special welcome and thank you to all of the candidates who will be participating this evening. Thank you for your time. Your community thanks you for your volunteerism and your commitment and your passion for our children and our schools. Thank you. To begin the forum this evening, the candidates will each be given 2 minutes to present an opening statement. And then following the opening statements, we will take questions from our live audience here tonight. And if there is time, we will take questions from the online audience as well. So the thousands of you watching online, right? I'm sure there are a lot of you out there. Feel free to type in the chat box or whatever it is on the YouTube channel, and Eric in the back will be passing questions up to me as they come in. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer all the questions. So for each question, each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer, and in some cases, one candidate from the entire slate may give the answer to the question, is what I understand. And that's really going to be it, unless a very special circumstance, and that is if one candidate mentions another candidate from another slate in his or her answer to the question, the candidate that is mentioned in the answer will be given 1 minute, a 1 minute rebuttal. And that's it. No rebuttals, just one rebuttal, and then that will be the end of it. That's a 1 minute, 1 minute. So with that, kind of the ground rules. If you have any questions, we would appreciate if you would write them down on one of the yellow cards in the back and just raise your hand, and somebody will come around and pick it up and deliver it up here to me. I don't have a whole lot of questions yet. Hopefully we'll get some more, but we'll kick it off with the opening statements. We did a quick drawing at the beginning before everybody got here to see who was going to go first. And the winner was Carlos, gets to go first. And then I'll tell you now who's going to go second is Advocating for All, and then Jen will go third. And we'll rotate the order of the questions and answering around after the opening statement. So, Carlos, kick it off. 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carlos Muhammad, and thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for having me here as well. I moved to Sparta 3 years ago with my wife, and a big part of our reason for moving to Sparta was the education system. So I decided to run for Board of Education because I felt the responsibility to be involved in the progress of this great school system. I believe while a lot of us may have differences in views and differences in opinions, that we should all work together to come to a general consensus, and that we need to have a balanced group with healthy debate and opinions. But when we leave, that we all support each other and we present a united front. What we don't need is divisiveness between people on the board, and we need to work together, because ultimately what we're trying to do here is do what's best for our children and for our educators. We want to make sure that we are putting them first and keeping that in the forefront of our mind, and putting aside our own personal and political views and gains. So as a member of the board, I want to try and bring balance and bring healthy discussion, because I believe that's how we're going to move our school program forward for the future. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And second is advocating for all. I don't know who's going to speak there. Go ahead. Okay, Tammy.
First, we'd like to thank Carlos Mohammed and Jen Miller for co-hosting this event with us this evening. Thank you, guys. We'd also like to extend our thanks to the Sparta VFW and its incredible volunteers for providing us the opportunity to host this forum for our constituents. If you have ever been part of any team, you know that each player is there for a common goal. However, each person has a different responsibility in their role and different ideas or methods to accomplish that goal. Our slate of 6 has come together because we have a common bond. We have no personal agendas, we value public education, and we are motivated to see the Sparta Board of Education return to dealing with its rightful responsibilities. We believe that it is crucial that we celebrate our teachers and our students with the goal of showing the state that Sparta is a wonderful place to live, in large part due to our stellar school system. We are running under the slogan, advocating for all. The word advocate simply means to support. It does not mean to change or solve. In terms of who we can advocate for, that would be our students, our educators, and our community as a whole. We aim to create a positive atmosphere where we can engage in intelligent discourse, think independently, and make decisions that are in the best interests of our students. We are 6 women running for 6 open seats. Our 1-year term candidates are qualified for the following reasons. I, Tammy Mongan, have been a teacher for 17 years and a member of the community for 20 years. Dana Galino is an account executive with over 20 years of project and budgetary management experience. Davina Dora is a physical and occupational therapist who provides pediatric occupational therapy for children with special needs. For our 3-year term candidates, Jen Grana is a former Sparta of Education member and an educator for the last 3 years. Caitlin Gagnon is an award-winning freelance writer with a history of communication and strong leadership skills. Jessica Nelson is the founder of the Sparta-based nonprofit Wished Upon a Child, which provides holiday and birthday assistance to local families experiencing financial hardship. Between the 6 of us, we have 19 children. Excluding those in college, all of our children are enrolled in Sparta's public school district, ranging from pre-K to high school. We believe our strengths and our values should represent the Sparta Board of Education as much as they represent us as individuals. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you all tonight, and we thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. And Jen, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you to the Advocating for All slate candidates for putting together this forum and for inviting me. I also need to place a disclaimer at the beginning of any and all of my comments that I make tonight. I am a current member of the Sparta Board of Education. However, please understand that tonight I am not speaking on behalf of the Board of Education, and my statements and opinions are not representative of the board or its individual members. They solely represent my own personal individual opinions. I'm not going to read that every time I respond, so that's a blanket statement for the evening. Neve Grano, who is at the school board's convention in Atlantic City, myself, and Patrick McKernan, who has a business commitment tonight. They both wish that they could be here. Our 3 incumbent Sparta Board of Education members who are seeking additional terms in November 2022. Ms. Grano was first elected to her current position in November of 2019. Both Mr. McKernan and myself interviewed for our current seats and assumed them in February and April of 2022, respectively. All 3 of us feel strongly about providing consistency to the Sparta Board of Education, and we are therefore running for 3 3-year seats. We feel dedicated to our roles as Board of Education trustees, and we take our roles very seriously. Board of Education members are not charged with administering the schools, but rather ensuring that they are well run. In our capacity as Board of Education trustees, we have voted to support the efforts of the superintendent and the administration with the best interests of Sparta students at the forefront. We represent the interests of the community and serve as communicators between the community and the school district. It is also paramount that Board of Education members are willing and able to listen to all citizens. Our slate of incumbents takes a moderate, measured, and informed approach in our capacity as members of the Sparta Board of Education, and our voting records are consistent with that approach. Again, I very much appreciate being with you tonight, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Thanks, everyone. We'll now go to our questions, and so far I've only got a few. I have some others we can use as well. And just, again, raise your hand if you have any questions or need a slip to write your question on. The first question, we'll first go to advocating for all. So you guys will be up for this one. This is with 6 open seats on the Board of Education. You will likely be on the board with members of other slates. How do you plan to work together knowing you have differing viewpoints?
One-year first or 3-year term first? Does it make a difference who answers first?
Doesn't make a difference. No. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, hi. So the question was, how do you plan on working with if you end up a member? So I feel like anybody would probably answer the same way, but it's not logical to, and it's counterproductive to not be open to working with anybody that's running. So if you're running with a slate, you're running individually, you're running with 3 people, 6 people, whatever, it just doesn't logically make sense to enter into any collaborative board situation in any contentious way. So I would say for myself, and I don't want to speak for everybody on our slate, but I think we would all agree that being open-minded is going to be the way to go. And perhaps this time that we've spent leading up to Election Day has been stressful for many, and certainly mimics a lot of what's going on all over the country and all over our local areas and local elections. But when it comes down to it, at the end on November 9th, starting in January, there's going to be 6 people on the board that are going to be new, potentially, and have to get to know each other. And as long as everybody has the same interests in mind, that is how Sparta has to move forward. So I would say it's an interesting question, but not one that I think anybody should be overthinking, because the whole nature of the Board of Education is for 9 differing opinions, 9 differing perspectives to come together in the best interests of the students and the staff. And as long as everybody that's running has that in mind, then it really shouldn't be an issue. I don't anticipate it being an issue for any of us.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And from the 1-year or 3-year term, or 1-year term, that was 3. Okay, all right, 1-year term. Yep.
Okay, like Jen said, it's easy to say that everybody is going to come to the table and be open-minded and willing to hear all of the opinions. I can say, I know there's been some conversation about the fact that why are people running as a group of 6 or a group of 3? What I can assure you is we are each individual thinkers. We have no problem telling each other what we think, disagreeing, and trying to find common grounds. That's how we engage in relationships in our whole lives, whether they're with our families, our significant others, people in our workplace. So being able to talk things out, it's a skill that we've learned since kindergarten, right? Isn't there some poem that people hang up, what I've learned since kindergarten? So anyway, we are all individual thinkers. I think it's a positive thing that we have opposing views, because that's how we learn and we grow. So I think being able to work with all different kinds of people, I know I can say for sure that the 6 of us, we are very good at being able to talk to, we didn't even all necessarily know each other super, super well before we did this. But I think we're all able to work with anybody that would be at a table with us.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. Jennifer, you're up next. Do you need me to read the question again, or you're?
No, I believe I have it. This is actually very similar to a question that our wonderful Sparta High School students asked all of the candidates as they so wonderfully put together a extremely informative website that I hope everyone has an opportunity to to log into. So this is actually a very, very similarly worded question. And they worded it as, actually, I answered this actually with the way that this question is being asked. They asked for what maybe are some of the biggest challenges, and certainly I think anyone who is running this year realizes that there's 6 seats that are going to be available, and so obviously some of us are going to be working with people who we haven't worked with before. Obviously, there are some, perceived very different opinions and views potentially from the pool of candidates. But I, for one, actually look forward to this. If I should be one of the people sitting at the dais come January, I don't really see that as challenging. I actually quite look forward to it. In my professional life as a school administrator, I basically work every day with people who have various opinions and very different, strong opinions about a lot of different things that they feel very passionate about and that are important to them. And in my role as a school administrator, it is my job to work together with all those people to find common ground. And I think my professional experience obviously lends itself very, very well to working with a lot of different people who have a lot of different perspectives. And ultimately, we need to keep in mind what the role of a board member is, and that is to, support the recommendations of the superintendent and the administration. And while we can have, some great dialogue around that, we need to also keep that goal in mind. And I think that will help bring common ground, almost immediately to the new board members. That is our job. That is our role. And if we stay grounded in those goals, I think it's very possible for us all to work well together.
Okay, great. Thank you. And our timekeeper's right on it, doing a good job there. I caught that, right on it. And Carlos.
So as I alluded to in my opening statement, I believe that any well-run business or any board is based on healthy conversation and healthy discussion about any topics. And there needs to be some healthy debate and some opposing views. So I don't think it's a difficult task. I actually think it's part of what we should be doing as board members, is having these type of discussions and being open-minded with each other and trying to work towards a common goal. In my current role, I'm a campus executive chef, and I work with 4 or 5 executive chefs, about 6 different general managers, all different backgrounds, all different personalities, and we are tasked to come together and come to common decisions for the best of over 1,600 residents that reside and utilize our 7 different restaurants. And while, yes, there can be some heated discussion and there can be some debate, and we may not all agree, but when we walk out of that room at the end of the day, we are a unified front and we support each other. And we make sure that we are doing what's best, not for ourselves, but for the residents. And as a board member, I believe that would be our responsibility as well, to come together and find common ground to do what's best for our students, our children, and our educators.
All right. Thank you, Carlos. Thanks, everyone. Next question is we're going to start off with Jen this time. Jen, what do you think of our current school buildings, and do you think any buildings need to be added on to, rebuilt, etc.?
Okay, this is actually a great question. I will preface this question with, I love our school buildings because I went to school in many of them. That is also dating me and the buildings. So I am very aware of the condition of Alpine School, as my daughter attends Alpine School. I was a Helen Morgan kid, so I went K-6 to Helen Morgan. Where's my Helen Morgan people? I see you. So I'm more familiar with Helen Morgan because I attended, and I'm also familiar with Mohawk Ave because it was the old junior high. Anybody remember the junior high? 7th and 8th grade with the little lockers. And I have commented on this question in different articles that we've been asked to respond to. We desperately need a new facility or facilities for our elementary students. The facilities that we have are not adequate for our staff and students. We're a growing population. We have a very happy problem in Sparta that people are moving here as opposed to other towns in Sussex County where people are moving away and other districts are closing schools. We need to expand upon the facilities that we have. So one of my goals, should I be elected to the board and continue my work in January, one of my goals is to work very closely with the other board members and the administration on what we can do about getting at least a new elementary school facility. And that is not a small undertaking by any means. It needs a lot of support from the community. We would likely need a referendum. And I've been a part of referendums in districts that I've worked in the past. And like I said, it is not a small undertaking. So I say that with, a lot of work ahead of us in mind, but it is desperately needed, at least a new elementary school.
Okay, thank you. And then next we'll be advocating for all schools, renovations, additions. One, okay.
Hello. Much to what Jen said, I agree. Everyone who has a child that is in Alpine knows that it's busting at the seams and the conditions are poor. And I think we all agree it needs to be replaced. My concern is, though, you just can't say, hey, let's replace Alpine if you're not fully funding the capital reserve. And I don't know if we are, because that is not something that has been talked about. Dr. Beck did say at the meeting last week that if we were to undertake replacing Alpine, it would be a 5-year endeavor, which, I mean, that makes sense. It would be tough and it would be difficult. However, I'm wondering why we haven't then started. And I'm concerned that maybe the money is not there. And that is because there might not be the right funding going on with our capital reserve fund with the current board. And like I said, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to call Jen out on this at all because she is a current board member. But this is a concern of a lot of residents, is that we just don't understand why, when there are repairs that need to get done that seem like they're no-brainers, why they're not done. And so I think that one of the most important things when a new board gets in there, or a mix of old and new members get in there in January, I think a big part of at least for myself as being a brand new board member, is really having someone explain to me how our budgetary concerns are, how our priorities are made. Are we fully funding what we need to fund? Are we following our engineering study? All of those things, so that when we say, yeah, we need a new elementary school, we can actually back it up with building a new elementary school because the money's there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So I am going to parrot some of what Jen and Dana have said. For the last 2 board meetings, I have brought up to Dr. Beck the feasibility study and where we stand with that, in hopes of maybe making a summarized version of it available to the public so we can really see what the results of that were. From what he has expressed at the last 2 board meetings, the feasibility study did show that the most effective way to move forward is to build new buildings entirely, not to renovate, not to build on top of the current facilities that we have. So I think that tells us where we stand. The public does deserve to see a breakdown of what that entails and maybe a plan for what we can look forward to. That being said, I totally agree. I think Alpine is in dire need. There's an endless list, but to name a few, we have temporary trailers that were temporary 30 years ago. We have art and music class taking place on carts that are going to classroom to classroom. We have an auditorium stage that is being used for special services. So I think it's very clear where our priorities are there, and it seems like we're trying to maximize the amount of students that we're serving rather than optimizing the experience of each student in that building. We obviously can't afford to have any more students attending that school until we do something about the overcrowding. Beyond that, too, to Dana's point, Dr. Beck did mention at the last meeting it would take 5 years if a referendum had passed that night, which I don't believe did. If a referendum had passed that night, it would take 5 years until the school students would be able to walk through the doors of any new facility. That being the case, there are immediate concerns that need to be addressed sooner than that. We have 2 bathroom stalls in a women's faculty bathroom serving over 100 female professionals in that building. That is unacceptable. The way that we let our teachers know that they are appreciated is making sure they have the facilities to do their job, which absolutely will help our students as well, not including, again, the list of other things that we have. So there's no denying, I don't think any board member denies that there are some serious concerns when it comes to our facilities, and it's time we address those like data set.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. Carlos, anything to add to that?
I mean, I can mirror a lot of
Yeah.
what everyone is saying here, but I just want to give some background here. I've seen this happen before, and this is something that I see is moving in Sparta with trailers and with a population influx. And I'm coming from West Orange before my wife and I moved to Sparta, and I can see when you're not being proactive with moving forward with renovations and taking care of your facilities, where that can lead. And when you start to see 10, 12, 15 trailers outside, and it becomes commonplace for years because we're not taking action in a timely manner. And that's not something I want to see happen in Sparta. I want to see us really start to move forward. And yes, it's going to be a huge undertaking. It's going to take 5 years. It's going to take time, but the time is now. We don't want to waste any more time and have things like trailers become commonplace, or have our educators and professionals having to share 2 stalls for 100 people. It's just not feasible. And we need to really scrutinize and look at our budgeting and how we are utilizing our funds to make sure that these things can be done and can be moved forward in a timely fashion. So yes, well, I do agree with everyone that is seated here. I do believe the time is of the essence, and the time is now. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Carlos. Thanks, everyone. Next question, and we're back to Carlos batting leadoff again. So sticking with Carlos. How will you make sure that students are heard as a member of the Board of Education? Carlos?
Well, I believe that we should be involved, and I know a lot of students are very vocal and very involved in what goes on in their school system and how they are taught, and I believe that's great. We need to be listening to them, and we need to have open forums and invite students to come and speak with us and to give us their input and give us their feedback. Let us know what they see needs to change so that we can make informed decisions on how we can execute that, because ultimately they are the ones that are in the school system. They're the ones that are utilizing our school buildings and are working with our teachers. So as a board member, I think it is our responsibility to listen to our students and our teachers and heed their opinions. And that's the way that we will invoke healthy discussion and come to common grounds on things that really need to change. I mean, ultimately, it's not us that need to really be saying, hey, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. It's the students and the teachers that should be letting us know, hey, this is what needs to get done. This is what we need you to focus on, not to focus on things that we feel personally we should be doing. So I think the more that we get our students involved, the more that we get our teachers involved, I think the better board that we can be. And I think the better decisions that we can be. And I think we can really push this school system forward for the future and keep it as great and make it greater than it is currently.
Okay, thank you. Now Advocating for All gets two shots at that question.
Okay, so first of all, I've been going to a lot of board meetings over the years, and I was especially moved last year by the amount of our intelligent, brave, honest students who got up and spoke so many times at different board meetings. And I think one way to value them and show that what they have to say is important is by actually responding to them. A lot of times they were never even responded to, acknowledged, thanked, appreciated. They have a lot to say, and when we say we're advocating for all, I mean, we are advocating for our students. I know there's talk of having this liaison with the board, which I think is imperative. I think it's important that it's not actually even just the high school students, finding ways to get kids of all ages. I love when people bring their little kids to meetings. Sometimes it's just because maybe they don't have childcare, but what those kids are seeing from a very young age is how important it is to speak for your town, get involved, be involved with the schools, and we're showing them from a young age. So, I mean, I'd love to even see little kids come to the board. I think it's important for them to be able to share what they're doing in their schools. Sometimes we only celebrate the really big things, but what about the small things? Being able to hear from our students what they have found successful, what they like doing in their elementary classes, their middle school classes, their high school classes. I think it's really important that we empower our students because they're our future. They really, truly are. So.
Okay, great. That's the
1
3-year term, or another 1-year term. Yeah, I'll catch on. All right, 1-year term. Now we got the 3-year term coming up. Yeah, 2 minutes, 3 years. Yep.
It's so funny because I swear I have not talked to Tammy about this at all. But what I was going to say was the last board meeting, actually, that was only last week, right? I don't know. I remember sitting there and it was so quiet and it was so still. I don't know how many people were there. It was just so, and no disrespect to Ms. Rossi or Dr. Beck. I mean, they were presenting the NJSLA scores and like some of the things they have to present are not always the most exciting. But I was just thinking about years ago, because I also have been going to board members for quite a few years, and remembering that there was always a student presentation, there was always a performance, there was always something going on that led off the meeting, and I really missed that vibe and that energy, you know. And I think the past couple of years, granted, there's been some circumstances that haven't been great, and there's been drama, and there's been a pandemic, and there's been a lot of things, and but bringing back that interaction with the students, I think would really help engage the community to get more adults out and more students out. And I was going to say the same thing that Tammy said almost, was the student representative from the high school is so great, because even what they did with the website, even what they did with their civics class, it's so remarkable and so inspiring. I'm really, really secondhand proud of all of them, even though I don't know all of them. But just that they're that level of interest is really amazing. So it says a lot about them. But not even limiting it to high school, I think it would be great to have a middle schooler come and ask questions, get questions from their class. And even Helen Morgan, I would say, have some kids that are interested in civics and they want to go to board meetings, and maybe they would like to get up to the microphone and engage with, they don't have to sit at the table, but maybe they have a different representative come every month. And just get them excited about what that is. Because there used to be a time when parents and students and teachers were really excited that it was the night of their board meeting. And we were going to hear about Helen Morgan's STEM presentation, or we were going to hear about the robotics club's victory or something, and they were going to present about it. I'm sorry, I'm stopping. But that I think is a great way to lift all students' voices, not just high school, but all over, and hopefully engage more community members.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Jen, you get a stab at that one. Yep.
So the thing that the Board of Education does really have a lot of control over is the style of the meeting. And we even recently asked to have the meetings pushed back into Mohawk Ave School, which is where they always were, because there's just kind of a different feeling at Mohawk Ave that's just a little bit closer, a little bit nicer. The board isn't sitting on the stage. There isn't this massive separation between the public and the board. So the board actually does have a very fair amount of control over the style of the meeting. And as an educator, I've been to many board meetings also. And Jen and I have talked about the old style of the meetings where there were always student presentations. They were always pushed to the front so that the little ones could leave after the presentations, and then the board could attend to its business because it is bedtime. But the new board will absolutely have some control over that in asking for that to come back, where student groups provide presentations at each meeting. And it certainly adds to that joyous, celebratory feel that we really can and should bring back. So those of you who are there in January, can you suggest that? Because that would be great. Also, I work in a district that has always had a student representative seated at the dais, so I thought it was very odd in Sparta that we did not have that. So I'm very glad to see that has come about so quickly. We did approve the club that will kind of like funnel the students' ideas to those board representatives at the last meeting. They are going to take middle school students, so it's going to be a mix of middle and high school students. Mr. Pleshy has set up a rotating schedule for different, so get excited too if you get on in January. You're going to have a rotating schedule to meet with those kids also in advance of the meeting. So the voices heard will not just be the students at the table, but those who want to be part of that club, and the club is open to any middle and high school students. So that's exciting.
Okay, great. Carlos, anything else on that one? Else? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The next one, this is exciting. We have our first online question. Our first online, there is somebody out there watching. We got somebody an online question. All right, so this will be, Jen Miller starts off this one. If necessary, where would you cut the school budget? What would you consider off limits to budget cuts and why? It's a stumper, right?
Okay, well, that's a tough one. I would have to significantly rely on the current administration, specifically the business administrator, in having discussions surrounding budget cuts. As Dina alluded to, and I've spoken about this before, I believe it was at the SEA forum, school budgets are very complicated. They're very large, but they're also very complicated in that the different accounts that are funded have very specific laws surrounding them. So like capital reserve, for example, only so much money can be in there. It can only be used for certain things. So there really does need to be some education for the board from the business administrator about what accounts are funded, what those funds can be used for. And then, that would be a very unfortunate and critical conversation to have with fellow board members and with administration. Obviously, you never want to see anything that directly affects students suffer. So we certainly wouldn't want to see staff cut. We wouldn't want to see programs cut. So it would honestly depend on the amount of money that needed to be cut, because certain sums of money can't be made by cutting the amount of paper that you order. But I would not want to see anything suffer that directly affects our students. So staff, programming, and I also wouldn't want to see facilities suffer, considering we need new ones.
Okay, thank you. And then Carlos, you're up at second spot there.
All right. Well, I'm going to agree with Jen on that as well. I mean, we do need some leadership from the business admin and to really look into the budget and see where things are allocated and how you can move funds around and where you can move funds around for different accounts. But as you said, facilities are in dire need, and that's something that I would not take away, and as well as staffing. I believe that we should be trying to attract more teachers to come in from different districts instead of losing teachers to other districts. I believe that Sparta, we should be highly competitive in drawing teachers to work here and making it a great place and a destination for teachers to want to be. So I think staffing is paramount, and I think the better educators that we have, the better our school system is going to be, the better it's going to be for our students. So I believe that a lot of our focus should be on attracting great staff and retaining the great staff that we already have and not losing them to other places. So these are some of the things that I believe we really should not cut. We should actually try and increase some of the funding for them. So.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Caitlin or team here? No.
I'm going to have
Yeah.
Jen
Jen?
take this one. I think I've passed enough notes
Yeah.
to her.
I'm going. Okay. Well, this is a really interesting question and a really good one, but any questions about the budget, I always find fascinating because the budget is so much of what represents what we have and what we need. But as board members, I don't know that you can actually answer it as what I would cut from the budget or what I would not cut from the budget. To Jen's point, it's kind of like well, you rely on your administrators, you rely on your business administrator and the superintendent to kind of make recommendations, and you give opinions about it and what you think. So very similar to what Jen said. There's definitely areas I would argue should not be cut. And that's all you can really do is argue for them and speak your mind about what you think is valuable, right? Special education, staffing, facilities, obviously those things should really be maintained, if not taken better care of. I do think there's some things as board members you can inform or you can express your opinions about. I think there are definitely areas that Sparta has spent far too much on the past couple of years, including attorney's fees. And there was a time when we didn't have a board attorney at the meetings at all. And we weren't required to pay that person every month. And there was much, much less legal fees. I think that's something that we could return to as a board, discuss that. And that's an area that we could save. I think there are certain other areas that we could provide our input and suggestions. I don't know that we have the authority to cut anything or not cut anything or keep anything. Making sure that teachers' negotiations go smoothly, that contracts are settled on time, that they know that they're valued, that they know they're valued by being funded and the things that they need and the facilities that they work in. Those are things that we can really inform as board members. But as far as the budget, I think the biggest issue is getting a full, thorough understanding of that budget, full transparency. Where's the money coming from? What can this account be spent on? What is capital gains reserve? What is that dedicated to? Understanding all of that first and having a really thorough discussion about the budget to make sure that everybody's needs are addressed.
Okay. Another one? Yeah.
I just want to say first that Tammy had to go and pick up her daughter or son, I'm not sure, but she's planning on coming back. So, okay. So similar to what a lot of folks said up here, I believe that the business administrator really needs probably to be held to task. I've witnessed a couple of projects that our board has approved that did not have multiple bids. We did not do the competitive bidding process. You can't say that you have the lowest or the best bid if you're only asking for one. So like Jen acknowledged, it's not like I can say this is what I'm going to do, but asking the BA the right questions when there's a project that comes up and we see one vendor on our, come across our desk. Do we have more vendors? Why don't we have more vendors? Does this vendor have the right licensing to work in the state? I mean, these are some of the things that we've actually witnessed, that vendors without the proper licensing have been approved to do projects. They've gotten very far down the line, and then we've realized, they're not even approved to do this project. So that brings us back to, the beginning, which costs money and time. So these are some of the ways that we can, obviously cut some costs. Turnover costs a lot of money. It's a huge, huge amount of money. And so when we are not settling contracts in a timely manner, or when we are cutting things, or there are some shady decisions made by the board and our good teachers are leaving, it costs a lot of money to replace them. And it's hard to find the same caliber of teacher. They're out there, of course, but when there's a stigma with your town, you're not going to get the high quality of teachers that are leaving. And so that's really concerning to me. So those are a couple of the ways that I think that we could probably keep an eye on. I'm not going to go into the lawyer at the meeting because Jen spoke about that. So thank you.
All right, Carlos? Did you do this one? You did it. I'm giving you 2 shots. They get two answers down here every time. I'm going to give you 2 answers every time. All right, this is an easy one. All right, you get 2 minutes, but it's a yes or no question. All right, I don't know how we can come up with some line. Yeah, you're going to be leading off here. All right, yes or no, Carlos? Are you supportive of the new sexual education guidelines for the younger grades?
Well,
I know.
That's not really a yes or no question per se. I will agree with the curriculum that is brought forward, and I will agree with how our teachers as professionals will put that curriculum forward. I believe that we as board members, as parents, as people in this community should allow our teachers to teach the curriculum in their professional opinion. While in my career, I listen to feedback from my residents, they do not come into my kitchens and tell my chefs how to cook. I am technically an administrator. We have administrators for our teachers. They look at the curriculum, they look at what the teachers are teaching. We don't oversee that. We don't look and choose what curriculums are taught. So I believe that's really not a yes or no answer. I believe that we just support what's put out there, and we allow our teachers to use their professional opinion on how they put that forward.
Thank you. Jen, you're up next. No, I'm sorry. Advocating for All is up next. Yep.
So I'll take this one. I definitely agree with Carlos. I think empowering our teachers and entrusting them to do the jobs that they have trained their entire lives, in most cases, to do is absolutely crucial. It's necessary. That being said, I know the question was specific to younger grades. Without getting into too much detail, because of the fact that I'm, obviously on an ongoing investigation, I'm sure everyone is aware of what occurred at Pope John and the really horrible circumstances of a teacher having to leave. I think that for younger children to be able to recognize and avoid sexual abuse, they must be equipped to understand when sexual abuse is happening. And it is so important in today's climate to really avoid buying into the hyper, super sensationalized media talking points that we are hearing all over, that frankly, on an individual level, not speaking for my slate, I'm really getting tired of. No one is indoctrinating our children, especially our Sparta teachers. No one is, at least on our slate, advocating or even discussing things like Drag Queen Story Hour, not to bring that up, but it's necessary. We really need to get rid of and strip away the hysteria and the sensationalized talking points and really scrutinize what is happening. And for a second grader to be able to label and identify their body parts to avoid abuse, there is nothing wrong with that. And I support that fully. I support our teachers as they embark on this totally appropriate journey of equipping our children and our students to recognize when there is a viable threat, because viable threats exist and they are not coming from our classrooms.
Okay. Thank you, Caitlin. And go ahead, get one other. Dana?
So the question was whether or not I support the curriculum.
It says supportive of the new curriculum.
Okay. So
No, it's not curriculum, it's guidelines. It's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a parent, whether I guess chose one option or the other, since there were two courses, that's no one's business, right? But as a board member, and what the board is here to do and what they did, and I have to give it up to Jen and to our administration. What they did was they got the standards from the state, and there's no way to get around those standards, right? So they asked their educators to create the curriculum to ensure that the kids met those standards. And they listened to the parents' concerns, and whether or not I agree with whoever was, it doesn't matter. The board listened, the administrators listened, and I thought that was really great. Everybody should have a say, and everyone should be able to say, I do this, I like this, I don't like this, I like this. And I think that in the end, the way it was handled, which was, okay, well, we don't want to use the word opt out or opt in, we'll create two courses. We don't want to pull kids out. There's enough for every course to have enough kids. Every single concern was met. And so I thought it was beautiful. I thought it worked really well. So the board literally voted on, does this curriculum meet the standards? And it doesn't matter what the subject is. That is what, as a board member, we're going to have to do. Just, fill in some other word for sex education, and that is what's the board's job. And so as long as we keep our personal thoughts out, as long as I don't say, well, I want this or I want that, then I'll be able to be a board member in the right way. And so, yeah, and I didn't mean to be like, like rude or anything, but every parent here should have a thought about how they feel, and they were able to click that. Every need was met, and every parent should have a comfortable, safe option for their child. And I think that that's important for us to just continue to offer, regardless of what the topic is.
All right. Thanks, Dana. Jen?
I'm gonna give a very dry response to this, and I am gonna echo Dana's sentiments. How I personally feel about the standard, the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, does not weigh into my decision as a board member. And what I decide for my child is my own business, as it is everyone else's business to decide for their own families. What the state of New Jersey does is it provides the districts with learning standards for all grade levels and in all subject areas. Then each individual district then writes the curriculum documents and procures the resources for teachers to be able to facilitate those lessons in the classrooms. The curriculum is written to meet the standards. However, each district has autonomy to decide how to best deliver that instruction to meet the standards, being mindful of the student population, the age appropriateness of the content, etc. I feel very comfortable with the health and PE curriculum that was written for the Sparta School District, as it was written by a very competent team of teaching professionals. The state health and physical education standards have always had an opt-out clause, and parents may choose to opt their child out of any of the health lessons related to sexual education within the district's curriculum.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Next one is going to start off with advocating for all. So we'll start over here again. And this one is that a significant portion of our local taxes go to public education. Do you feel the money is being spent effectively? And what is the top budget item we can improve upon? All right, Caitlin? Jen? Yeah? Jennifer? Yeah, okay.
Going back to kind of what I was saying about the budget, the question about do we think the money is being spent appropriately is, I don't know. Because what I think is kind of lacked, at least from my previous experience on the board included, is just a complete and thorough, transparent understanding of the budget period. I know that the administration is responsible for crafting the budget with the BA, and that's the process, and presenting it to the board. But I think it's really crucial for all the board members, at least, to have a full understanding of exactly what that is. And I think that requires a very strong business administrator to educate the board members. And then when it's presented to the public, there should actually be very little questions from the board, because they understand that money for this specific item can only come from this account, and this account is dedicated to this thing. And there's a lot of levels to the budget that I don't know everybody really fully understands. And that's the best way to make ask informed questions about where the money is going and being clear about it. I think that my instinct is that it's not being spent appropriately, and it hasn't been for years. And you can tell that by looking at all of the elementary facilities. And very big ticket items that have been prioritized in the past. And I think it's, to Carlos's point, catching up with us now. And that's something that really needs to be addressed immediately. And nothing really should be that dire. Helen Morgan, just in 2022, became handicapped accessible. That can't happen anymore. That school was built in 1958, and handicap accessibility did not exist until this year. That's the kind of thing that Sparta has to look in the mirror about and really take care of. And I think when it comes to our facilities, it's becoming that point for all of the elementary buildings. So to answer the question, I think the tax dollars are very important to the school system, and we need to spend them appropriately starting immediately.
Okay, Caitlin, you going to take that? No? Did you?
We switched.
Just switch seats on me. All right.
You're doing amazing.
All right. It does make it easier, though. I'm glad you switched it. So, all right, Dana. Yep.
So I guess I'll take it, Tammy. Okay. So like Jen, I agree. I don't have a knowledge of the budget on a granular level. It's hard from where I'm at, right? From where we are on the at the mic, on the floor in the auditorium, to really get a sense of it. And the budget, I mean, it's not just like a couple pages. I'm sure it's like 70 odd pages of but we're not also setting the priorities, and we're not there when we're not, really living it like we would if we were on the board. But I am going to agree. I think that it's probably something that could be looked at, and there could be some changes. I see a lot of places where it looks like they could use some repairs, and then we see a lot of things that there always seems to be money. You see people who ask for something. I mean, Jen Rogoff's been asking for a truck for the band when her kids were still in the band, right? And they're not there, and you're still waiting for it, and you're told you're going to get it, and then you're not, and that's frustrating. And it's like, well, where, it was requested, and what happened, right? Oh, well, we'll look at it next year. We know that the women, the teachers in Alpine really need to go to the bathroom, and they've got 2 stalls. And then you go to the board meeting like last week, and one of the board members is like, yeah, I just don't think they need them. And it's like, okay, well, what do we need? And he's like, yeah, well, there's like a crack on the floor. That's not really maybe managing money in the right way. So I can't say for sure if the money is being mismanaged. I don't want to, say we're going to get in there and it's going to be fixed, but at least there's going to be questions. There's going to be oversight. And I hope that if I do have the opportunity to work with the other board, we could at least start on a path of improvement with regards to our tax money.
Okay, thanks, Dana. And Carlos, do you feel the money's being spent effectively, and what budget item can we improve upon?
Well, I mean, I think I've stated my opinion on facilities multiple times during this entire forum here. Now, I can't say without looking at the budget and speaking with professionals and financial professionals about how the budget is being managed. I can't say that it's being mismanaged, but from what I can see from the outside looking in, there has to be ways to get these things done. And from knowing, from working with a large scale budget in my current position, I know that if I say, hey, I got one restaurant here and they really just need $20,000, and I put $50,000 into their budget, they're going to spend up to it. So we need to look at how the money is being allocated and why the funds are being allocated there and what they are actually being used for. So it requires a lot of scrutiny and understanding of the budget. And to everyone's point on this panel up here right now is that all of us as board members, whoever is going to sit on that board, needs to be educated and needs to have a strong business administrator and a strong financial leader that's going to say, hey, this is how our budget works. This is what the accounts look like. This is what the allocation of funds looks like. And this is how we can start to look at how we can move funds around to get the things done that we need, not to waste money on things like, hey, we got to fix a cosmetic crack, or we need bathrooms. We need facilities fixed. We need to rebuild schools. Sparta's only going to get larger. There's more and more people coming into Sparta. It's a destination. It's a great town. My wife and I love it here, and I can see more and more people coming in. So if these problems aren't addressed now, we're going to run into some serious problems. And I definitely don't want to see that happen, and I don't think anyone here wants to see that happen. So I think our budgets require a lot of scrutiny and moving forward. So let me go ahead and stop now.
Thanks, Carlos. Right on time, Carlos. Thank you. Here's a little change of pace. Why and who's going to kick this one off? Is Jen? Jen, you're going to go
Oh,
first
I didn't
here.
get my budget answer.
Oh, you didn't get your.
I'm sorry.
You get to go to the back to the last one then. Okay.
So yeah, I'm the
Budget.
last of the
Yep.
budget question. And to kind of echo everyone's sentiments here, and not to plug our slogan, consistency. This is not an uncommon problem with boards of education. And it's kind of a call for some consistency in board membership from 3 years to 3 years, because a specific board can have plans for things to happen. And then if new members are reelect or are elected, and certain members don't stay on, sometimes what happens is those plans kind of fall away. If superintendents don't stay after 3 or 5 years, again, sometimes those plans kind of fall away, and it's for everyone else to try to remember back when we were planning for 5 years from now. So this is not an uncommon problem for boards to have. I know people are always surprised that maybe some things facility-wise have gone unchecked or unrepaired, because we all think to ourselves, if we live in our house for 20 plus years, we're going to need a new roof at some point, right? Like, we all know that. But sometimes it's difficult to understand why the school district doesn't realize that we need a new roof. And it's because, the people who are sitting at the table at the time weren't there 20 years ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago to plan for the money to have a new roof. So we really need some consistency in the district with our administration, some consistency with some board members, because what we should be doing is putting together some long range plans of 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 years. But that realistically, those board members aren't going to see those plans to fruition necessarily. So maybe a more realistic, long look of 3 to 5 year goals, facility wise, some sort of evergreen plan to kind of make sure that we're maintaining facilities, much like we would make sure we're maintaining our homes.
Okay, thank you. And then rotation is you get to start again with the next question. Why do you feel there has been so much turnover in the board recently? Told you we were going to shift gears a little bit.
My answer to that is I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't been privy to the reasons why that has happened. I'm not sure. I mean, what I can tell you from being a board member for the past several months is it's very time intensive. You need to, there's a huge and steep learning curve becoming a board member. There's a lot to learn, and depending on your specific background, that may lend itself more easily to learning all that that needs to be learned in order to function as an effective board member. I can't speculate. Everyone is entitled to make their own decisions about what's best for themselves and their families. And I couldn't say why there's been some turnover.
Okay, Carlos, you're up next.
I mean, I not being on the board, I can't say for sure what would cause such a turnover in Board of Education. And as Jen said, it could be for a myriad of reasons of, time constraints or restrictions, or it could be, disagreements or rifts within the board itself. Unless I'm sitting on the board, I can't really speak to that. But it is a job that, requires your time. All of us here have lives outside of this, and we choose to do this for the betterment of our community and our teachers and our students. But what I'm hoping it's not is not, just disagreements and opinions. I think as board members, that's not really a reason to be leaving the board. I think we should all be trying to work together here to find common ground, whether we agree on the outcome or not. So once again, I can't make a thorough assessment of why people are leaving the board, but what I can say is I hope it's not for those reasons, because I believe everyone as a board member should really try to work together, regardless of what side of the tracks or what side of the argument they are on, that we try to work together. And as you said before, it's a possibility that it could be a mix of people on the board with a varying array of opinions, and we need to be willing and open-minded to work together to find a common ground. So,
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Caitlin, you want to take that, or Dana? Okay, all right. Yeah. The question reads, why do you feel there has been so much turnover in the board recently?
Well, I did ask for the resignation of 2 of them. So I can tell you that I believe there were, we'll just say, alleged ethics violations for at least 2 of them. And you can Oprah anything that you want, or we can just talk about it if you want. But so for the 2 that that I did write to the board and ask, it's exactly that. I mean, I've been going to the board meetings all year. I've been paying a lot of attention. I think this entire town's been paying attention, and it didn't just start this year. There have been board members who have been overreaching their role for a long time, and it came to a head. And there are board members that were sitting on the board that just were not willing to say something or were complicit. And it was hurting our children's education. We were losing teachers. We're losing programs. I mean, it just was something that, I personally got involved more so this year because of DE&I. I was very interested in it. I knew there was new legislation, and I started doing research. And a board member, reached out to me and wanted to talk to me about all these things that were not DE&I. And it was like, this is not how the Board of Education works. And it's certainly not how the Sparta Board of Education is going to work. And so for those particular board members, the ones that were unethical, I think they made the right decision, and they left. For the ones that I don't know, there's some that I don't know why they left, and I was not involved. And I'll just echo what the other folks up here said. I don't know why some of them left. But for the other 2, I think there's good reason. I think a lot of people in Sparta know. Thank you.
Okay. Caitlin, yeah.
So I'm going to start actually by addressing the elephant in the room. So we get asked this question quite a bit because, as I'm sure everyone in attendance knows, Jen Grana, my beloved running mate, did in fact resign from the board. And I just want to go on record saying I absolutely admire the fact that Jen refused to be complicit on an unethical board. And I think that it's really important for the community to understand the difference between staying on a board that is corrupt and not doing your part as much as you can, whether I don't know what happens in executive session or had happened in executive session, but knowing Jen, I'm sure she had a lot to say. And in my heart, I don't envy her position at the time, or excuse me, I should say, I was also upset at the time because I think I even reached out to you saying I'm disappointed, but I understand. And I think it's really important that there needs to be that system of checks and balances. But either way, to go back to Dana's point, 1000% in my heart, I believe that we have had a kind of this monopoly of our board for quite a long time now. And it seems to be the same characters that are monopolizing the Board of Education. Thankfully, after one meeting where Dana and I spoke very vocally, and you don't even have to Oprah, save the district money and watch the board meeting for yourself, where we asked for the resignation of a board member for very unethical behavior. Several days later, he resigned. I don't want to say I'm proud of that. I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision for him. But at the end of the day, unethical behavior does not belong on our board. And I do think that, unfortunately, he was not alone in that process of monopolizing our Board of Education. So I think when we strip the unethical behavior, when we restore integrity, which is one of our first goals, that's why I'm running, is because I might not be the most qualified person to sit on this board, but I promise you, I'm a woman of integrity, and you're going to get the honest truth out of me, whether I'm in public comment, whether I'm behind the scenes, whether I'm in executive session, all the way. I think we need to restore the integrity and get rid of the unethical behavior, the overreach, and seeing the board as an opportunity to control our district rather than improve it.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next one, we're going to start it with Carlos down at the end. This is a online question submitted, and it reads, there have been questionable personnel decisions made in the past year that have resulted in teachers leaving our district. If elected, how will you handle personnel matters, Carlos?
Well, a lot of the people up here have spoken about overreaching. I don't believe that we should really, as board members, be overreaching on what we can and can't do with personnel changes and with teachers. And if we start to set that precedent, it's not going to be conducive for not only attracting new teachers, but also retaining the teachers we currently have. And this is a real surefire way to lose what we have. So I believe that, yes, there has been some overstep, and yes, we should not really be involved in those type of personnel decisions to that extent. So, we want to build a safe space for our teachers. We don't want them to feel that, hey, I need to leave because this type of behavior is happening. And that's not something that I will stand for, and I'm sure a lot of the people up here will not. And I believe that, and I've said this before, that we want to attract more teachers and not lose teachers to other districts, and definitely not lose them for reasons of not feeling that they're valued or that their job can be at risk, or these things can happen to them. So.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. And we'll go back to Caitlin or Dana or Jennifer down here. I'm not even going to try anymore. Yeah. You go, Jen? Okay.
Yeah, I think that this is a pretty simple answer. If I'm reading it correctly, how would you handle personnel questions? Was the question? Issues? As a board member, board members do not handle personnel issues. So it's a pretty quick answer, but there's a personnel committee. And if you're a board member on the personnel committee, you take the recommendations of the superintendent into consideration with the assistant superintendent, and then you give feedback and you provide have feedback from the community, feedback on how you feel about the issues that they're presented, but there's no handling of personnel. The personnel is handled by the administration. So just to clarify, as an online question, whoever is asking that question, I think it's I think anybody on this panel or anybody running for the Board of Education should answer the same way, that board members don't handle personnel. Personnel is handled by the administration. However, supporting teachers, of course, being unbiased, providing open-minded feedback to situations should they reach a board level is super important. And teachers knowing that they have trust in the board members, that they are not going to be targeted, or they are not going to be marginalized for any specific reason, and they are open to do their jobs, that's of course important. But as far as handling personnel issues, I think that that's kind of a little too direct of a way to ask that question. And part of the issues that have arisen the past 2 years are because board members have handled too many personnel issues. And that's something that needs to be stopped. And it needs to be going back to being a more collaborative, committee-driven, feedback-driven treatment of personnel issues as far as board members' responsibilities in that capacity.
Okay, thank you. Dana, you're next. Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Jen. That last part was really important. The questionable personnel decisions that the community, I believe, is talking about all have to do when the board overreached and did not leave it up to the administration in the way that it's supposed to be. Because there have been other personnel decisions made throughout this year. I'm not saying that I'm privy to anyone, but ones that maybe I have been involved with or friends have been involved with. And when they're handled via the correct process by the superintendent or by the principal, you don't hear all of this backlash because the process was followed properly. But it just does seem, though, that our board did get involved in some of these personnel matters that they just probably should not have. And so, yeah, so basically, I just want to echo it. If I were to sit on the board, I would not be making personnel decisions. It's not a board member's job. And I think that my slate, especially, I can't speak for Jen and Carlos, but we certainly understand that.
Okay. Jennifer?
Ms. Grana stole my answer. I just want to show her that I wrote this down before she spoke. The board should not be handling personnel issues. The board supports the recommendations that are brought to them by the superintendent and the administration. We may ask questions, but we don't handle those issues. We have administrators in place who administer the district. The board does not do that. And we ask questions if we feel that we need more information, but we are charged with supporting the recommendations of the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the administration as far as like the hiring of personnel, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Next, we're going to start all the way down here again now. Oh, good. Look at, we'll put Tammy on the hot seat. Come on, Tammy. So this is another one submitted online question, all right? And it kind of piggybacks on something Carlos mentioned earlier, that our municipality, our township, our student body is growing in town. We're growing in diversity. There are more families of different cultural backgrounds. How will you ensure that those families of different cultural backgrounds are being represented, supported, and that the district is valuing these families?
So this is really near and dear to me, so I'm just going to take this one. So something that I find to be very important is representation. So if we plan to advocate and represent and create policy for all different kinds of walks of life, then it's probably important for us to ask those people to take part in the policy making. It is almost impossible to create a policy for a group that you are not part of. But we're so lucky that we have all of those people and all those different groups in Sparta. So it is so easy for us, if we want to create DE&I policy, to ask POCs to be part of it. If we want to make sure that we are supporting our LGBTQ community, why, we can just ask them, can you help us? Do you see yourselves being represented? That is probably, I would say, just something that it just seems so simple, right? If the board ends up all looking the same or talking or sounding the same, there's probably a good chance we're not going to be able to bring a lot of diversity to our policymaking. So I think opening things up to the community, asking different religions and faiths and races and pretty much people, like I said, from all walks of life to take part and to tell us how you feel and to tell us what you want to see, gives us a perspective that we wouldn't know just from, Dana, who lives in Sparta and has 3 kids. So basically just representation. I just want to see every type of person that we have here represented and advocated for in every policy that I pass.
Okay, thank you. Caitlin?
So I'm going to piggyback off of what Dana said in terms of representation. I think equal representation is absolutely important. That being said, it also expands, I know you mentioned faith, it also expands beyond race. It is important that board members are not entering the arena, so to speak, with the intention of imposing one ideology or injecting that one form of ideology into board proceedings, procedures, policies, whatnot. And that's where representation comes in, making sure that there's equal opportunity for all ideologies, all races, everything, belief systems, everything to be represented. And we do that by making sure we're not catering to one group in particular. That being said, specific to race, I do believe that Sparta is growing in its diversity. I'm very proud of that. I've been proud of that for a long time. I also have been a huge advocate for responding to incidents of racism and discrimination. We cannot take those incidents lightly. They do happen in our schools. As much as we want to believe that these situations are not happening in our schools, they are, and they deserve a swift and appropriate response to make sure that there is not a culture that's created where we can turn a blind eye as long as. So that's important to me. I encourage everyone to look into One for All. We did that with the Sparta Police Department to address incidents of racism in our community. And we actually filed multiple police, I should say the police filed multiple reports regarding those incidents, which have been alive and well in our community. That being said, too, when it comes to representation, making sure that we're not targeting the resources like books that celebrate diversity. Again, diversity is not unique to race. So when you have different lifestyles, and it seems like for some reason those resources are being pretty attacked, I don't want to use that word, but attacked, challenged, I go so far as to say banned, you can't have that. And it sends a very clear message in terms of our stance on diversity when we have people in the community doing that. So I say let's not do that, celebrate diversity, and we do that by opening the door as much as we can.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. Jen, you're up next.
Bill, can I ask you just to repeat the question again so I make sure that I answer all parts of it?
Yeah. It was submitted online. As a community that is growing in diversity, more families of different cultural backgrounds, how will you ensure they are being represented, supported, and that the district is valuing these families?
Great, thank you for repeating that. And I think my answer comes from my experience on the board the past few months. What I have seen is that what we could do as a board and as board members is supporting the programs, courses, clubs, events, ideas that come from our student population, our staff, and our community. I think all three of those groups have wonderful and amazing ideas that as board members, we could just simply be supporting those things. We are not necessarily the panel that comes up with all of those ideas, but what we're supposed to do is then support those people in the celebration of those ideas. And we have so many things in place already in the district that are beautiful ways to celebrate our diverse population. And again, if we can, circle back to that idea that Jen and I have been talking about of bringing back that celebration style of the board meeting, this is a place and a time in our months where we could be bringing these groups, these clubs, these events forward to showcase them at the board meetings and celebrate them as a community, in a board meeting. And what a great way to show the community that we celebrate all of these wonderful, diverse ideas, events, clubs, courses, et cetera, than by showcasing them at our very own, board meetings.
Okay, thanks, Jen. And Carlos?
I think representation is the real word, the sticking word here is representation. And I'm not going to speak as obviously a man of color, but I believe that we should have open forums and open discussions where students of all different backgrounds, not just of race or gender or identity, or of everyone from religious backgrounds, can come together and discuss. And we should hear from our students of what they believe we should be discussing and moving forward with. I think it's more important to get their opinions and get the opinions of a mixed, diverse group of people so that we can really have the proper representation and understand that there's a lot that we can bring to the table if we all just come together and work together to find common ground. And it is going to continue to, I've come from a town where, I started off as one of 3 people of color in the elementary school. And then by the time I got to middle school, it was, the United Nations. And that's how I grew up. And that's what I represent for myself, is that, we all need to work together, and we all have stuff that we can bring to the table. And I think representation from each of these groups and from everyone is going to be paramount in moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Next is we're going to kick off with Jennifer Miller, and kind of sticking with the theme. Each of you can answer, where do you stand on inclusivity, specifically in regards to LGBTQ plus and in particular trans rights? Where do you stand on inclusivity, specifically in regards to LGBTQ plus and in particular trans rights? This is from the room. Yep.
I can provide a little bit of my background, and maybe that will also aid me in answering this question. As I stated earlier, I'm a career educator. I've had experience over 20 years now. I started out as a high school English teacher, English and journalism, and mainly working with high school students. I became an administrator after I was teaching for 6-7 years, and I was an administrator at a large urban high school. So I spent a lot of time with high school students. They certainly were the group of students in particular that I had wanted to work with. I then had various opportunities to step down into a middle school and ultimately into an elementary school as an administrator. And I also very much enjoyed the elementary students, which is where I've been for the past 10 years of my career. But I, spent my career as a teacher, especially as a journalism teacher, helping to show my students that they can be whoever they want to be, that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve. They can have whatever opinions they want as long as they can back them up in facts. They can write about those things in an article as long as they can also back them up in facts. And so I stand with inclusivity as a teacher, as an administrator, and as a mom. I certainly stand with all people who want to be included, as we all want to be and should be included.
Okay, thanks. Carlos, you're up next with that one.
And I mean, we kind of answered a lot of that with the last, not just with the LGBTQ community, but I believe just inclusivity as a whole. We need to be inclusive and understand everyone's background, sexual orientation, cultures. I think the more that we understand each other, the more that we can have our children and our students be more well-rounded. I think everyone needs to understand each other. And yes, I believe in the inclusivity of the LGBTQ community as well as every community that is out there. And the more we understand about each other, the better off we're all going to be. And I think we need to spend the time learning about each other and understanding each other. And that's the only way we can get past things, that keep us apart. We shouldn't be looking for things that are going to divide us, but find those commonalities in all our different backgrounds. And that's what's going to bring us together and make us a stronger community and a stronger school system and just stronger people in general. And then that's where we want our children to go. We want them to be understanding and well-rounded and know and go into their adult life knowing more than we did. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carlos. Who wants to take that down here? Yeah? Yeah. Tammy? Yeah.
Last year, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Sussex County town that was praised as being the first to fly a pride flag. That should have been us. Sparta should have been the town that did it without having to have a vote and have people petitions convince them to do it. It should just be a thing. You fly it and we be proud of everybody. As a teacher, similar to what Jen had said, our kids are growing up in a different era. They're used to this. We need to learn from them. Over the years, I teach middle school, specifically 8th grade, and I've had students every single year talk to me about their journeys. Sometimes it starts out in their writing. They chronicle how their experiences as they've been going through middle school, what it's like for them. They've been very open, very honest. I've had students who have come in who have changed their names, they've changed their pronouns, and every single child in the grade, in the class, rolls with it. They accept it. And it's time for the adults to do the same. I'm glad I came back. Okay, sorry, there's one more thing. So how can we actually do that? Yes, we need to learn from the students. But something else, things that how we can support, because I know specifically it was trans rights. Ways of doing that, maybe not having gender-specific bathrooms, just have a bathroom, right? Anybody can use that bathroom. When you go into a mall or stores, like sometimes there are places you just use the bathroom. It might be called the family bathroom somewhere else, but maybe in school sometimes we have maybe ones that are not gender-specific. It's just one thing I could think of off the top of my head. Fly a pride flag and just continue to learn from our students is what I would say.
Okay, thanks. And Caitlin or Jennifer? Jen? Okay.
One thing I could say about inclusivity is, I mean, to answer the question, I stand on the side of inclusivity of everything, and LGBTQ and transgender rights. I would say I am standing with those things. But I think as far as board members, what you can do to support that is some of the things that are no different than what we were talking about when it came to diversity, which would be supporting clubs that talk about that students want to form and they want to initiate, and not targeting resources that talk about those things so that all the students can learn more about it. Two things, not to keep talking about being teachers, but as a teacher of high school level, especially given what the past 2 years have seen, I feel like I've seen how inclusivity works in a lot of ways. On that level, I've seen what respect for inclusivity and transgender rights and LGBTQ rights and inclusivity in general, how it works. When you are sensitive to it, when you are supportive of it, you can see the results in those students. It's in front of your face, and it's necessary. It's important, but there are results that prove that it works. My youngest daughter has Down syndrome, and she has been at Alpine this year, and she is in an inclusive classroom. That situation is no different. You can see that it works, including differing backgrounds, differing perspectives, differing students all together works. But it doesn't just work for them. It doesn't just work for my daughter. It works for the other students as well. The students that are struggling with LGBTQ identity, gender identity, all of those things, they need to know that they're being included. The other students need to be shown how to include them, and then it all works. So in terms of where to stand, as far as board members whose role is to support the staff and students, there's no better way to support the students than inclusivity all the way.
Okay, thank you. Next question is coming from online. And Carlos, you're going to kick off this one. What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in our district?
I mean, I believe, and as I said, I'm a newer resident to Sparta, but a big reason why I moved to, my wife and I decided to move to Sparta is the school system and the achievement that Sparta's students are able to achieve in moving on to higher education and graduation rates. And I believe that we can continue to move forward if we continue to help support our educators and continue to help build our school system. This is this is going to be how we continue to continue that achievement rate and to build on it. And I have 2 children that are in the school system now, and one that's going to be, well, he's got a little time left, but I'm looking forward to seeing that growth and seeing some, I moved up here and I have some friends that live in the area as well, and seeing how their kids are educated. They're a little bit older than my children, and it's amazing what this school system has done. And that's why I felt a need to be a part of this, to help support this, to help move it forward, because I believe that Sparta students do achieve at a high level, and I'd like to help be a part of continuing that.
Okay. Let's see, that's all the way back down this end again, and Caitlin's nodding her head. You're gonna go, yeah, 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 yeah.
So one of the concerns that I think a lot of people have, and rightfully so, we are coming out of a global pandemic. There are consequences that we're all enduring as a community, and especially our students are enduring as a result of that pandemic. But that being said, I do think it's important that we acknowledge the fact that what we are enduring here in Sparta is not unique to our community. There is a lot of talk of learning loss, and I actually really admired Ms. Rossi the other night for kind of correcting that and saying it's not quite loss. I think another way of looking at it is almost like a temporary setback. I'd be interested in seeing some of the results that she presented that night with Dr. Beck a year from now, 2 years from now, to be judging the performance of our children who just went through, dare I say, a very traumatic experience of, quarantine and virtual learning and all of these kind of endless variables. I'm really proud of where we are today. We are sitting in a room with, I don't know how many people, quite a few. We're not 6 feet apart anymore. We're not wearing masks. We are able to coexist again. And I think that we should be really holding on to that and seeing the silver lining rather than focusing on or scrutinizing the negative effects of what we all just endured. We should be very grateful that we're here to even have this discussion. That being said, while they are setbacks, they are legitimate setbacks. We do need to work to address those setbacks. I believe in our staff and that everyone is aware of those setbacks and will be working actively and proactively to address those. That being said, I do think this is a good opportunity. I can go on about this one and I have less than 30 seconds. I think it's a good opportunity to recognize we can't have students without teachers. So without teachers, there are no students. And what I mean by that is valuing our teachers and making sure that our teachers are well equipped to serve our students will lead to optimal achievement results.
Okay, thank you. Down here, Tammy? Yeah.
Thank you. Our district actually offers so much, a lot more than many other districts do. The fact that the foreign languages that we offer starting in 6th grade, I mean, we offer our kids Russian, things that many other high schools, top high schools in the state don't even offer. We have an orchestra that begins in 4th grade. We have an amazing arts program, music program. We seem to really have it all. We have a STEM academy, not to embarrass my own daughter that's here, but she got to hold a human brain going to the Rutgers Cadaver Lab as part of the STEM academy. These are amazing offerings for our students. So of course we always want to keep moving forward, and how do we keep that up? I think testing comes up a lot, and how do we perform on the tests? But I think really the average person, and maybe even sometimes teachers really don't always know this. I had the privilege of being able to sit in on a conversation with some statisticians from people who actually developed the tests that our students take. And it was very fascinating, the things that I learned during that time. And these are just things I picked up on as a teacher. I mean, do you know that when children take the NJSLA, that not every student in the class gets the same exact test? It's different from student to student. So when you talk to your child and you say, well, what did you get? What did your friends get? Your friends may have had a very different test than you had. The passages that are given to the students are different. So you're not necessarily always comparing apples to apples. So that's why we never say that testing is the one thing that we look at. We look at so many different things as well. Additionally, because I know right now I saw a little bit in the paper, I saw some things online talking about how the testing has changed. Well, let me tell you, the test itself has actually changed. The test has been different than it was just a few years ago. So what actually was the problem? Was it the students taking the test, or was it the test that came out? So these are things that we need to investigate as well, and not just put all our eggs in one basket. I mean, even now, for those of you who have older students, the SAT that has been around forever has become optional right now for colleges. So, I mean, if something as big as that, and let me tell you, they make a whole lot of money by putting these tests out, and they're saying those are optional for colleges. So we can't just rely on that. And I know I'm supposed to stop, but I just want to finish and just say, no, I agree with Caitlin. And how do we keep doing this? We need to keep supporting our teachers. We have to stop putting up roadblocks. They are doing the right thing, and they know what they're doing. We have to keep supporting them in their ability to put together a curriculum, and they know how to educate our children.
Thanks, Tammy. And Jen Miller, areas of concern regarding student achievement?
Well, I think I would be remiss to say that, every administrator and teacher across the country has a concern about student achievement right now. Again, not to, sound like a broken record. I feel like we're at that time in the forum, ladies, where we're all going to start saying the same thing over and over again. And Carlos, I just include you. Obviously, there's been a decline in scores. Again, not to echo the sentiments of other candidates, but we are coming out of a global pandemic. Our district administrators are creating data teams in all of the buildings to examine the building specific data more closely, to unpack all of the different data points and to compile different reasons why the scores look the way they do. We're all doing the same thing in the world of education right now. I have to remind myself as I unpack my own students' scores that last year's fifth graders never took the NJSLA before because they were home in a pandemic. Last year's sixth graders only took the NJSLA as third graders. So there were years where these children didn't even sit for this test. And any educator, any teacher will tell you that them taking that test on the computer is more than half the battle, especially the mathematics NJSLA. To be completing math computations on a computer screen is not necessarily best practice. So there are a lot of reasons why the scores are in decline across the nation. I trust that Sparta has a plan in place, as it does have a plan in place for unpacking all of this data and providing teachers with important information and tools to be able to bring students back to a place where we have previously been achieving.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're not going to get to all the questions tonight. I'm doing my best to pick out some different topics in here. We have one more question, if that's all right with everyone, and then we'll go to the 2-minute closings and we'll finish right at or shortly after 9 o'clock. So we've discussed a lot of topics, and one of them has been the need for facilities and improvements. After the need for facility improvements, what is the next highest need that you recognize in the district? Who we start with? Who started the last one? Carlos did. So that's down here, advocating for all. Yep.
So I think that obviously facilities are a glaring concern, and to move away from budget items or, actual investments that we can see that are tangible. On a personal note, I think that our community is or our district rather, is desperately craving collaboration. And when I say that, I definitely want to circle back to what we were discussing before with board integrity and making sure that the board is not seen as an entity for control and power. And instead, it's seen as an opportunity to empower students, empower teachers and support them, and to make sure that taxpayers are also getting investing properly, getting a good return and investing properly in terms of what they're contributing to our district. I want to, since it's the last question, I would also plug in the fact, when we say advocating for all, it took us a little while to come up with that slogan, but once we did, we knew what it meant to all of us. And I think all is the most essential part of that slogan. When we say all, we mean everyone. We mean students. We mean the inclusivity that we were discussing earlier. We mean teachers, we mean staff, and obviously we mean the huge array of opinions that we find in our community. We know that right now these are difficult times. We're aware of the fact that things are very polarized. And I think that to Carlos's point earlier, the faster we can stop focusing on our differences and really looking at the fact that at the end of the day, we're more alike than we are different. I think when we can put aside those differences and really really strive to work together, I think that the benefits will be clear as day for our community. And if we're elected, I know that that's what we intend to do. And I do think that the leadership the board demonstrates should not be one of control and power, but empowerment instead.
Okay, thanks. And from the one-year team?
So before we started to run, I did know that there were a lot of different thoughts and opinions of townspeople. I just didn't realize how divisive we could really be. And I think that it's been really eye-opening. This has been a really long few months, and I'm afraid that it might have separated us even more. And so I'm concerned that when we do have the election and wherever the cards fall and we're left with a board, at the end of the day, we are 9 people who might have spent a lot of time disagreeing with each other, but now are tasked with working together for our children and for this district. So I do believe that being a productive board is really important. And how are we going to do that with potentially very different views up on the table? Something that we've been really, really strong in our convictions on is that we don't plan on whatever maybe we feel personally, whatever you might see on my Facebook from 10 years ago about my lunch or whatever. That's not what I plan to bring to the table as a board member. I want to listen to all voices. I want to hear all opinions. I want to hear opinions that are different than mine because it's important for us to make decisions when we know how everyone is thinking. And we really need to provide options as a board that make all parents and all stakeholders comfortable to send their children to public school. So, yes, we've talked about not banning books or celebrating and respecting teachers and all the different things that we can do. But when it comes down to it, as 9 board members who are representing an entire 20,000 person district, it's just really important that we're able to sort of leave everything that we feel personally at home and do what's best for this community. And so that's really important to us.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see who's next. Jen?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this question correctly.
Yeah.
Was it a financial question? Like beyond
It says,
facilities, what is the
"Beside
financial
facilities,
need that's next?
What is the next highest need of the school district besides physical facilities?"
Okay, so not necessarily financial.
No.
I have written about this and also would look forward to kind of talking more at the board level and with administrators should I continue on the board. And it kind of goes along with the fact that we do need a new elementary school facility. I think there is potential for a real opportunity to also capitalize on the fact that with that new facility, there would be possibilities of Sparta being able to create some of its own special education programs within our community to bring back students who are otherwise educated out of district. And I think that it speaks to also this idea that we would love to include all of our children within our community. And although we do that even with our out of district students, what better way to show them that they are included in their own community but by having a program that is housed in the town that they live in. So something that kind of goes along with the idea of being able to have a new building and facility that would then, empower us as a district to, again, create programs for students that over the years have otherwise been educated in other districts. And it's also a potential for us to educate students from other districts in Sparta that would financially benefit the district as well. And so it's something that I would like to explore. I think it's potentially something that would be amenable for many families, especially special education families. But to speak to what Ms. Grano was talking about too, to bring our special education students back to Sparta will not only help them, but will help all of our students. When they interact and go to school in the same building with special education students, that only enhances the general ed population as well.
Okay, thanks, Jen and Carlos.
Well, I'm gonna say it again. I would say the next most important thing is retention of staff and building and continuing to build our staff and our educators here in Sparta. Also, I believe that we should be putting some focus on inclusive programming. We should be looking on building that program, and as we discussed quite a bit tonight on how we can further bring ourselves together and not try to divide ourselves. And unfortunately, as you said, Dana, like there's been a lot of division, and we may be more divided at the end, but it's our responsibility as people to try and bridge that gap, honestly. And I mean, as a possible board member, we need to focus ourselves not on things that are outside of the board's control. We need to not waste energy on things that we shouldn't be involved in. We need to focus that energy on the things we can change and the things that we can do. And how do we find that common ground together, whether or not we're from all different opposing views or oppositions. I know a lot of us agree with each other up here, that this may not be what it looks like, and it probably won't be. So we need to understand that we're ultimately doing this for the benefit of our children and the students here. And that's the ultimate goal, and that should be the focus. And that's what we are tasked with doing, should any of us get onto the board. So I just I know that's kind of off the question a little bit. I tried to answer the question in the beginning, but I felt that needed to be said. So
Fair enough. Okay. Thanks, Carlos. On to closing statements now. Everybody will get 2 minutes closing statement. I think we'll have 2 minutes from one of the 1-year term seats and one for the 3 minute. Just one? Just one? Okay, one together. And Jennifer Miller is going to kick this off. 2 minutes.
Ms. Grano, Mr. McKernan, and I feel very confident in our abilities to bring some consistency and stability to the Board of Education. In my professional experience, I am constantly working with people who may have different perspectives or opinions on a particular topic or issue. And so I feel strongly that I can continue to work together with other board members and administration as we navigate challenges that we may and will encounter over the next 3 years. I have been witness to both Mr. McKernan and Ms. Grano also being able to do the same by asking important questions and being able to engage in meaningful dialogue with fellow board members. I also cannot stress this enough. Board of Education trustees are not meant to administer the district. The superintendent and pertinent administrators are in place to lead the district towards success. Although we are able to share ideas and ask relevant questions, the oversight of the district begins and ends with our role in evaluating the superintendent. As a voter myself, I am seeking to find candidates who I feel have the skill set and understanding of public education to be able to assist the board in effectively evaluating the superintendent's ability to lead the district to success. Again, I very much appreciate being included in tonight's forum, and thank you to those in attendance and those who are watching at home.
Okay, thank you. And Caitlin, you're going to take it? Yeah.
So if you value fiscal responsibility, accountability, and integrity, if you believe our teachers, administration, and staff should be supported as integral facets of education, if you believe marginalized students deserve the same recognition, resources, and assistance as any other, if you believe the Board of Education is responsible for operating respectfully and responsibly, if you believe that members of the Board of Education should be honest people, family-centric people, who will honor their obligations, who do not believe in playing politics with the lives and the education of our Sparta students, then our slate advocating for all is the slate for you. We are capable and willing to listen to every single idea, suggestion, and comment brought to us. We believe in providing options through policy and procedure to ensure every single family is well represented. We are motivated to uphold our students, teachers, and parents by shifting the board's focus back to public education and academic achievement. We vow to leave things better than we found them by launching the board onto a continuous path of improvement. We each have our qualifications and experience as individuals, but together our sum is greater than our parts. We each possess unique traits that we will bring with us to the table to help our board and our district flourish to their greatest potential. We've initiated as much change as we possibly, and positive improvement from the audience as we possibly could. If you scrutinize our records individually, we have each been advocating for positivity, decorum, integrity, access, ethical behavior, and achievement for years as parents. We look forward to the opportunity to do the same as board members serving our beloved community. For more information about us, our campaign, our endorsements, please visit our website at www.spartaboeadvocatingforall.com. With your vote in just a few short weeks, on November 8th, we can change what is into what should be. Once again, we would like to thank our constituents here and online, the Sparta VFW, and of course, Jen and Carlos for joining us this evening. We appreciate you all.
Okay, thank you. And Carlos, wrapping it up.
All right. I let off. Now
Yeah.
I'll wrap up the show. But first off, I just want to thank everybody for having me here, and thank you everyone for inviting me. It's really been a pleasure to have these discussions and to let people get to know us and to really see what our views are and how we feel we can help invoke change. And I really believe in our education system. I believe in our educators. I believe in our teachers. And I think we should allow them to use their professional opinion and prowess to teach our students and to allow them to help. I mean, you have to understand our children spend a majority of their time with their educators, with our teachers. And we need to have trust and faith that they are going to put their best forward to help mold our children into the best adults they can possibly be. And I believe that really, I know I've harped on staff a lot, but I feel that it's really one of the biggest focuses that we need to continue to build a strong team of teachers and retain the strong teachers that we have and not lose them to other districts. I am not trying to allow our teachers to help build other districts better, and we're losing some of our best people, and I don't want that to continue. So that's a big part of how I feel. We want to be that destination. We want to bring people in, and we want a well-rounded education system that's going to produce well-rounded and very educated adults. So I'm hoping that I can receive your vote and I can help bring balance to the board. I do believe in healthy discussion. I believe that any successful business organization is built on that. Once again, you may have differing opinions, but it is our responsibility to find common ground for the betterment of everyone. So thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us tonight, and special thanks to
Thank you, Mr.
all the
Askin.
candidates up here. Round of applause.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your participation.
We'd also like to thank Bill because he's actually volunteering to do this for our district tonight. We really appreciate him.
Bill.
Election day is 2 weeks from today, right?
That's
2
right.
weeks from today.
And
so
one last thing,
don't forget
I'd be
to vote.
remiss. My husband has taught me to always thank the sound guy, so I just want to make sure
Yeah.
Aaron Albert Gagnon gets
The
a little
VFW.
shout out for the wonderful quality of sound.